Hello guys, welcome to Tariq's class. In this video I'm going to talk about some important mathematical concept that you should know for the SHSAT. First I'm going to talk about geometry section. So let's see, there is a question here, as you can see. So a circle and a square. So let's read the question a little bit. I'm going to just zoom it in so you can see better. Alright, the question says, in the figure above, PQRS is a square, point S is the center of the circle. So PQRS is a square, point S is the center of the circle, and point P and R are on the circle. As you can see, point P and R are on the circle. If the area of this square is 4, so since the area of this square is 4, we know that it's a 2 by 2 square. That much you can tell, because length times width is the area of the square. And then it says, what is the area in centimeter, like in square centimeters, of the shaded quarter of the circle? So we want to know what is the area of the shaded region. So as you can see, that this shaded part is like 1/4 of the circle. I'm going to show you this concept. If you have a circle, you can split it into 4 sections. So this is 1/4. And for this kind of questions, you will need to know the formula of area of a circle, which is pi times the radius power 2. So here we can see the radius is 2, so we can do pi times 2 power 2, which is 4 pi. Now that's the area of the circle formula. Now 4 pi would be the area of the whole circle, but they said what is the area of the quarter circle, like 1/4 of it. So quarter means like you divide 4 pi by what? By 4. So here 4 and 4 cancel out, the answer will be just pi. So the answer is just pi here. So let's review a little bit what we're learning here. So we have to just find 1/4 of the circle, not the full circle, just 1/4 of it. So we did find the radius, which is 2, and we used the formula pi r squared, and that gave you the answer, but we have to divide it by 4 because we want only the 1/4 of the circle. Now remember, you have to also know the circumference formula for the circle for the test. Circumference is what, guys? Pi times the diameter. Pi times the diameter. Pi times the diameter. So if the radius is 2, the diameter must have been 4. If I were to find the circumference, which is the length of the skin, we can also call it arc, I would do pi times the diameter, which is 4 pi. The diameter is 4 because radius is 2, diameter must have been double, so which is 4 pi. So these are the 2 formulas you must know for the test, for the circle, area and circumference. And also this is called sector, means part of the circle you're finding. So let's talk about it a little bit more. Let's say I give you a circle and I tell you to find the area of this half of the circle, where this is the center, right? Half the circle, and radius is 2. What would you do? You know the area formula is pi times the radius power 2. Radius power 2 is called square. So you'll do pi times 2 power 2, that's 4 pi, right? But we only want the half of the circle, so you do 4 pi divided by 2. You're right, so you get 2 pi. So similarly, the circumference works the same way. If I were to find the circumference, the half of the circle, I would use the formula pi times the diameter. So diameter would be 4, so it would be 4 pi divided by 2, because I want to find only half the circumference, that's 2 pi. So you should understand that part. All right, the next question, 78, it's a shaded region again. So in this case, they said, what is the area of the shaded region? Now, if you can see, this shaded region is kind of like a weird shape. It's not like a regular shape. It's not a parallelogram or something. So we don't know what it is. So what we can do is we can use the formula that if I were to find the shaded, I would find the total minus unshaded. Now, if you were to see, what do you mean by total? So I can target this triangle here, a big triangle. You see the blue triangle? So from the blue triangle, if I were to just subtract out this baby right triangle, right? If I just subtract this out, that leaves me with the shaded region, right? So what we can do is find the area of the big triangle. How do we find area of a triangle? So remember that area of a triangle is half times base times height, right? So here base is 5, 10, 15, 20. So half times 20 times the height is 20 as well. 20. I'm finding the area of the big blue triangle. That's 200, right? Now let's find the area of this small pink triangle, which is 10 by 15, right? So use the same formula. So half 10 times 15. So that's 150 divided by 2 is 75. Now how do we find the shaded region, guys? I know the area of the big blue triangle is 200. Area of the pink one is 75. So how do we find the shaded region? You're right, we just subtract. So 200 minus the 75. That gives him 125, and that's the answer. Let's do the next question. It says there is a parallelogram. They said, what is the area of the parallelogram? So we know the formula is area of the parallelogram is equal to base times the height. That's it, just base times height. Now you have to recognize this base here, that's similar, 30. And the height is, which one is the height, guys? 25 or 20? Now the answer is 20. Do you know why? Let me explain it. The reason is, you see the 20 is making 90 degree with the base. So the definition of height is height has to make 90 degree with the base. But this 25 is not 90, it's more than 90. So that's not the height. The height has to make 90 degree with the base. That's the definition of height. So we're going to take the base as 30 and the height is what, guys? 20, because it is making 90 degree with the base. Remember this. So that's 600. Okay, that's for parallelogram. Now here there is a triangle, as you can see. So now it says Raquel is cutting out pieces of cardboard to make a pyramid. She will use a square piece for the base. So she will use a square piece for the base and identical triangular pieces for the sides. The figure above shows the dimensions of the triangle for each side. So these are the triangles. So she will use, the pyramid takes 4 triangles. So 4 identical triangles to make the pyramid. So 1 square and 4 triangles. Now what will be the total surface area? If you want to find the surface area, you can just find the area of each shape, all 5 of these, and add them. And that will give you the surface area. So first of all, the triangle, the shape is, the base is 10. You remember the formula how to find area of a triangle? Yes, base times height divided by 2, right? Or half base times height, same thing. So base is 10. What is the height, guys? Is 13 the height or 12? You remember the definition of the height. Height has to make 90 degree with the base. So the 13 doesn't make 90, but the 12 does. This 12 is here, if I put it, it's the same thing. So 12 does make 90 degree with the base. So I'm going to take 12 as the height and divide it by 2, of course. So that's 120 divided by 2 is 60. So 60 is the area of one of the triangles, and there are 4 of them, 4 identical. You know, a pyramid takes 4 triangles. So 4 times 60 is 240. That's the area of the 4 triangles. Is 240 the answer? No, because we have to add the area of the square. Now, what is the dimension of the square? You know how to find the area of a square, the length times width, or the side square. So the dimension of the square will be, each side is 10. You'll be like, why? Now let me show you, if I were to make the pyramid, I would make it something like this. The square, then I would have to put a triangle on this side, another triangle on this side, another this side, another this side, and then all these 4 vertices, I'm going to just put it together, and that will turn into pyramid. So as you can see, the base of the triangle is actually the side length of the square. So the area of the square will be 100, and now you add it with 240, so that's 340. Okay, so if you want to find the surface area, find the area of each shape, just add them. These questions are very important. They come on your test, so I'm giving you a brief explanation so you guys can study it before the test and get some help. Alright, number 62, the figure below is a triangular prism, guys. Remember this, triangular prism. Now, if you want to find volume, because that's what they're asking for, what is the volume of this shape? It looks like a piece of cake. So if you were to find a volume of, let's say, a rectangular prism, right? Which has a length, width, and a height. If you were to find the volume, you'd do length times width times height. right? So if it were to be a cylinder, how would you find the volume of a cylinder? Let's say you have a cylinder. It has a radius and a height. So if you were to find the volume of a cylinder, it would be pi r squared times it by height. So that's how you find it. Notice what am I doing in each cases. So we find the area of the base, which is a circle, that's pi r squared, and we times it by height. That's how we find the volume of the shapes. We find area of the base times it by height. So now I'm going to do this shape. This is a shape. It's a triangular prism. So first, if I were to find the volume, I have to find the area of the base. So the capital B stands for area of the base. If you see, before I used lowercase b for just the base, but the capital B is not just the base, it's the area of the base times it by height. Now let's take a look at it. What is the base of this shape? You can see there are 5 shapes in this, like 3 rectangles, right? And 2 triangles. 3 rectangles and 2 triangles. So since they named it triangular prism, so the base has to be triangles. So how do I recognize the base? It's going to be named right there. So area of this triangle is, we know that the base times the height is 8 and the base is 4. As you can see, this is 4. So if you want to find the area of the base, so the B, let's use a different color. So B, capital B is equal to 8 times 4 divided by 2. So that's 16. So we got it that area of the base is 16. Now what is the height? Now that's the question. What is the height here, guys? Is the height height is 8, 2, like what height is this? This is the height of the full shape. Now as I said, the height has to make 90 degrees with the base. If you can see this, sorry, this line 2, that's making 90 degrees with the base triangle. You see the line here that makes 90 degrees with the triangle. That's like perpendicular. These are, if you can think of this as a roof, like a ceiling, and these are the pillars. So these are the actual height of the full shape. The height 8, that was just the height of the triangle, the base. The 2 is the height of the full shape, like how thick it is. That's the height. So we're going to use 2 as the height. So 16 times 2, 32. And that is the volume. So area of the base times it by the height. Be careful with the height, like how you recognize the height is important. All right, then we have circle. They said, what is the difference between the areas of the 2 circles? You already know how to find area of a circle. Pi times r squared. So if diameter is 18, guys, what is the radius? 9. So what must have been the area? Pi times 9 power 2. That's what? 81 pi. How do you find the area of this baby circle? The radius is 6. So pi times 6 squared. So that's 36 pi. And they said, what is the difference? Difference means subtraction. So you do 81 pi minus 36 pi. I believe that's 45 pi. And that's it. Simple. Now here, rectangular prism. They said, what is the total surface area? If you want to find the surface area of the rectangular prism, it's very easy. You could also find the area of each shape and add it, as I said, for the surface area. But rectangular prism, there is actually a way to find it. Simple. You can just do 2 times started parentheses, right? 2 times, because there are 2 of each shape. So you see the 3 numbers, 20, 40, and 50. So I'll just write 20 times 50, let's say, plus you write 20 times 40 plus, so I did 20 this times this, and I did this times this. What remains? This times this. So 40 times 50, and that will give you the answer. So you can see I just switch around the 3 numbers. I multiply 2 times. So I get 2 times, that's 1000 plus 800 plus that's 2000. 3800 times it by 2, you get 7600. That's your answer. Alright, that's the surface area. So technically what I'm doing is, for surface area, 2 times the length times the width, plus width times the height, plus height times the length. Like you switch them around and you multiply. That's very simple. So now we have 2 triangles. The triangle MNP and XYZ, right? They're similar. The word similar means proportional. Proportional, right? So we can set up a proportion between two triangles. You'll be like, oh, what do you mean by that? So I know this side is 10, this is 6. So let's put 10 over 6. And I don't know what this side is. Let's say x, and this is 9. I can put x over 9. Right? Set up a simple proportion. So now cross multiply. So I get 6x equal to 90 and divide both sides by 6. 6 x equal to 1 by 15. So that's this side 15. So as you can see, these two sides are equal. They marked it like this. So this is also 15. Now they say, what is the perimeter of the triangle MNP? So that's 15 plus 15, 30, plus a 10, that's 40. Alright, that was it for the geometry. So as you can see, the things you have learned. So the circle, you know, pi r square for the area. Circumference is pi times the diameter. Parallelogram, area is equal to the base times height, right? And one more thing you should know is the trapezoid. So the area of the trapezoid is base 1 plus base 2 times it by height divided by 2. Alright? And how trapezoid looks like, you can see something like this. So let's say base 1, base 2, and this is the height. Now you can just plug it into the formula to find it, right? And then I showed how do you find the area volume of the triangular prism. So that's capital B times the height, the area of the base times the height, right? And I said how to find cylinder. You do pi times radius power 2 times it by height, right? And let's do one question. Oops. Let's say radius is 3 and the height is 4. So how do you find the volume? You do, we can put it here. How do you find the volume? So you do pi times radius is 3 power 2 and then times it by 4. So that's 9 times 4, 36 pi. I'm giving you a brief explanation here. I'm assuming you have a certain level of background and basics so you understand what I'm doing. And that's pretty much it. These are the basics. These are more common things that you can expect. Now let's do some algebra questions. Right? So algebra, the first question is asking, these are the types of questions you're going to be facing. So as you can see, this is a fraction subtraction. So what do we do in the fraction subtraction? We want the common denominator, right? So denominators, we want it to be same. So I have a 2x, I want this to be 2x. So what do I multiply this by? I multiply it by 2, top and bottom, right? So this becomes 4y, and minus the y, it will become 3y. That's where the answer is 3y. You know, common denominators, and that's it. Let's do a simplification involving algebra. So this one can be done a couple different ways. I'm going to show you the most general basic way. So at first, let's work with this part where we can distribute, right? So I get 39x minus 3 times 39 is 117. Okay, divided by 3, and then there's a plus 39, and then over 13 overall. So now when you divide by 3 here, guys, remember you have to divide both 39x and 117 by this 3. Okay, so let's see, 39 divided by 3 is 13x, and 117 divided by 3 is 39, because you know when we multiply by 39 by 3 we got 117, and then we have a plus 39 here, and over at the bottom we have another 13. Don't forget that. Right? So now this 39 is a negative, it's a positive, so it becomes 0. So we have just a 13x on top, 13 on bottom. We can take out the 13s. All we have is x. I will suggest that you practice it on your own, like copy this question on a notebook, pause the video, try it before you move on. Alright, now question another one. This is again fraction subtraction, right? When you do fraction subtractions, we want the denominators to be same. So 5 and 2, so we want let's zoom in a bit so you guys can see it better. Okay, so 5 and 2 denominators. So I'll multiply the 5 by what? 2, this one by 2, this one by 5, this one by 5. So I have a 6 over 10 and minus 5 over 10. Remember, out of the parentheses there is an x. On the other side, I could also do, you see here I'm adding the fractions. So the denominators, I want them to be same, 4 and 3. So times this by 3, 3, and this by 4, 4, right? So what do we get? 3 over 12 plus 8 over 12, right? So if we subtract this 1/10 x equal to 8 plus 3 is what? 11 over 12. Now, how do you solve for x? Now you can, you know, when we isolate the variable, let's say you have 4x equal, let's say you have 4x equal to, 4x equal to 8. How would you solve for x? Divide both sides by 4, right? So whatever is next to the x, the coefficient of x, the number next to it, we divide by that. So you could divide both sides by 1/10 like this, right? Or what I prefer is, you see the denominator is 10. Oh, sorry. So what I can do is just multiply both fraction, both sides by just 10. You'll be like, why? So if I just times it by 10 over 1 from both sides, the 10 in the numerator will cancel out 10 in the denominator. So only thing that remains is x. So 11 times 10 is 110 divided by 12. If I simplify it, means divide both by, let's say, 2, I get a 55 over 6. I'm assuming you guys know how to simplify like the denominator with the numerator. I will explain it in like later in the video. So let's say here another algebraic equation. So a hiker plans on hiking 17 miles in 3 days. So when you're dealing with word problems, like read one line, take some notes, like take out the outline like this. So 17 miles on 3 days. Write that down very quickly. And then, so the unit rate means per day. So we divide 17 by 3, whatever get this is like in 1 day, right? Because 17 miles in 3 days, for 1 day you divide it by 3. That's called unit rate. Unit means 1. Now, which equation describes, which equation describes the relationship between the number of days, height, so the number of days is x, and the number of miles traveled y, right? So 1 day, it's 17 over 3, right? 1 day you go 17 over 3 miles. Now they said x days. You see number of days x. So let me ask you this, like if 1 day is 17 over 3, 5 days will be 17 over 3 times it by 5. For 10 days, 17 over 3 times it by 10. For x days, 17 over 3 times it by x. And that's the total y. Be like that's the total travel, because y represents the number of miles traveled altogether. So y is equal to 17 over 3x times it by 17 over 3 times it by x. That's a. Alright, now here a bunch of algebra questions. Let's do this one, first one. So it's again, it's an equal sign in the middle, so you can just cross multiply. So 2x times 3x is 6xy, 2x times 3y, and 9 times 8 is 72. Now look, what is the question asking? What is the product of x and y? So they said x cannot be 0, y cannot be 0. This is just an extra piece of info. Don't worry about it. They just want to know product of x and y means x times y. So here I have x times y. Let's just divide by this 6 both sides. So I get xy equal to 12. Yeah, that's the answer. Simple. You can pause the videos and always practice. So I have an inequality here. It says negative 5 less than equal to 1 minus 3x less than equal to 4. So first of all, if I were to ask, I say, okay, graph this. X is greater than 2 but less than 4. Right? You'd be easily able to graph it. You'd be like, okay, you know, let's say this is 0, let's say this is 2, this is 4. X would be somewhere here. Right? You'd just like do it that way. But look at the difference. Here in the middle, I have just x by itself. But here I have not x. I have a 1 and minus and 3 times the x. You get it? So I have to solve for x. We're going to solve it like similarly as equations. So first of all, what we can do is You see there's a plus 1, we can do minus 1 from each and every side. So 5 minus 1 is negative 6. Negative 5, negative 1 is negative 6. And here 1 minus 1 cancel out, is negative 3x less than or equal to 3. Now it says I have to solve for x, so I divide by what number, guys? Next to x is a negative 3, so we divide by negative 3 each and every side, right? So you get x is what? When you divide by a negative number in inequality, what happens, guys? The inequality flips. You see this is less than, greater than. Now it will change it to less than. This will also change. The whole inequality will flip. So negative 6 divided by negative 3 is just 2. And 3 divided by negative 3 is 1, negative 1. Now take a look at it. When I subtracted negative 1 from each and every part of the inequality, I didn't flip the sign. That happened when I divided by a negative number. You see, divided by a negative number, that's when the inequality flipped. Now you can graph it. X is greater than or equal to negative 1 and less than or equal to 2. So that's F. You see, greater than negative 1 to 2 is in middle. That's it. Let's do 84. The reason I picked this question here is because you see the negative here, that's very important. The negative changes the sign inside the parentheses. So you guys probably know how to distribute already, as I'm assuming that you know the basics for this video. I can make other videos later probably for basics, or you can join my classes to learn, of course. So here, there's a minus here, right? Remember one thing, guys. If you have 8, let's say here, and parenthesis x plus 5, you see the number 8 is right next to the parenthesis. So you can distribute. But if you have something like this, 8 minus x plus 5, you see that 8 is not next to the parenthesis. So what is next to the parenthesis is an invisible 1 here. And that negative 1 will be distributed. So I can put an invisible 1 here. You see invisible 1. Now distribute the invisible 1. So you get 8x. Let me move it in the middle. So 8x minus 7, because negative 1 times 7 is a negative 7. And negative 1 times positive 2.5 is negative 2.5x. And then there's a plus 2. So now I can just combine the like terms. So 8x minus the 2.5, that's 5.5x, I believe. And negative 7, positive 2, that's negative 5. So 5.5x minus 5, that's F. Remember, guys, this negative 1 here has to be distributed. Now let's continue. One more here, inequality. Let's solve this inequality. We have 6x minus 20, then 5x. We can distribute here. So you get a negative 10 and a positive 6x. Because remember, this negative will be distributed. Don't forget. This negative and that negative will make it positive. So now I have a 6x minus 20, and 5x and 6x combines to what? 11x minus 10 here. So you know what you can do is plus 10 both sides, right? So we have 6x minus 10 less than 11x. Now we can do minus 6x both sides, right? So we get negative 10 less than just 5x, right? So how do we solve for x? Divide both sides by 5. So when we divide by 5, do I flip this inequality in the middle, guys? No, because I'm not dividing by negative number. If I were to divide by negative number, I would have to flip it. Like, doesn't matter if there's a negative on the other side, it doesn't. So when you're dividing, the number you're dividing by on the bottom has to be negative. So I get negative 2 here, so x is greater than negative 2. Must be D. So let's see if I did it right. So I'm just going to double check my work. So 6x minus 20 less than 5x, that's negative 10, positive 6x, yes. So that's 6x plus 10 both sides, we did, huh? So that's negative 10, then minus 6x, so 11x minus 6x, yes. So that's negative 10 divided by 5, which is negative 2, should be fine, yeah. So x is greater than negative 2, that's this one, D. Alright, that's it for that. Now we're going to learn some percentage. For percentage, guys, before I go to the question, I'll give you a lesson on percent. So how does this percentage works? So percent, there are three types of percentage. First type, you guys know that, let's say, what is 20% of 50? You know how to find it. 20% means what? Like 1/5? Or 20% means also 0.2, right? Times it by 50, that gives you the answer. That's the simplest form of the how to find percent. Right? 20% means 0.2. Like, move the decimal 2 times. That's 0.2, right? The second type you're going to face is, let's say 5 is what? This is what percent, or I can say 5 is 20% of what? Now take a look at the question. It's different than what the first question says. Here it says 5 is 20% of what? So I cannot just find 0.2 times it by 5. That will be wrong, because they said no, 20% of whatever that number, means 0.2 times this number here that's missing, that will give you this 5. That's what question says. So in this case, I cannot just multiply 0.2 with 5. So what we can do, we need to set up a proportion. All right, we're going to set up the proportion like this. You see, draw 2 lines, equal sign in the middle. Now 20% means 20 over the 100, right? And 5 is the 20%. So you put 5, that's the 20%. You see, 5 is the 20%. And we want to find the 100%, which is x, right? So x is the 100%. Now solving this, you just cross multiply and solve for x. Take a look at it again. This 20% is the 5, guys. And then the 100% is what is missing. So that's x. So that's how we set up the proportion. Let's talk about a third type. It says, let's say 5 is what percent of 30? Now take a look. I cannot just multiply, here percent is missing. So we have to set up a proportion for that, proportion. So what percent, we don't know. It's like 5 is a part of the 30. So 5 out of the 30 is the whole thing. But I don't know 5 is what percent, but I know the 30 is the 100%, the total. The percentage of 5 is missing. But you see, as you can see, that 5, we don't know what percent, but 30 is the total, that's 100%. Now you can just cross multiply and find it. I'm assuming you know how to do cross multiplication already. Alright, so these are the 3 different types. So you have to recognize what types it falls into. And one more thing I want to show you guys is how the increase and decrease works. So let's say you have $200, you're buying something with $200, let's say, then you get a discount. This $200 is the 100%, right? And then you get a discount of 10%. So you do minus 10%. So you are paying 90%. So after the discount, if you want to find how much you paid, you can just find 90% of 200. How do you do that? 200 times 0.9, or there are other ways, of course. That's like discount. If you're getting discount, you can just subtract the percentage, right? And the second thing you need to know is the increase, like for example, sales tax. You have to pay the tax, right? So let's say you bought something with $200. You bought something with $200, and that's the 100%. And you're paying, let's say, 5% tax. So you have to add the 5% with it. So that's 105%. So if you want to find out how much money you're paying after the tax, so you just find 105% of 200. So that's like, when you're adding percent, and this is when you're subtracting percent, right? So you can always deal with it this way. So I gave you like the percentage, how to think about. So these are the 3 main different ways. And then you have the discount and sales tax. Now let's just apply this here. Take a look at this question here. It says Mr. Jones has 550 goats, which is 10% more. 10% more means what? You have to add 10%. Means it's 110%. 10% more than Mr. King. So whatever Mr. King has, he has 10% more. So I can set it up. So let's say 10% more is the 110%, and that's what is 550. And Mr. King has the 100%, which we don't know how much. So we have to find it. Now we can cross multiply. So if you do cross multiply, what do you get? Multiply 110 with x, 550, 2 more zeros. You know, you can definitely simplify, which I'm coming to it. Divide both sides by 110. Here zeros cancel out, and so x equal to 11 goes into 55 5 times and 2 zeros. So Mr. King has $500. So 500 goats. So Mr. Jones has 550 and King has 500. So they said, how many more does Mr. Jones have? So you can just do 550 minus 500. That's 50. Let's do some more questions and then we'll get more clear. Let's do number 70. It says, okay, when asked a certain question in a poll, 72% people answered yes. So 72% people said yes. So no is said by what? Total is 100% always. So 100% minus 72. It's 28% people said no. Now they said if 56 people did not say yes, so if 56 people said no, then what is the total number of people there? So 56 people said no. So we can set up the proportion that, all right, the 28% is the what? 56. So I want to know 100% is, what do I put here? X. That's it. Now you just cross multiply, solve it. So it's 28x equal to 5600. Divide both sides by 28. So x equal to 200. So that's the total. Let's do another here. So now here in this case they said that's a different one. Another thing you have to know about percent is like there's a formula that's called percent change, right? You probably heard about it. So for percent change, so a number from let's say $5 to $8. So it changed from $5 to $8. So there's a $3 difference, but they want to know what percent difference. So if you want to know the percent change, if you use the formula, that's the new value minus the old one divided by the old one, absolute value times 100. Well, it sounds hard, but it's actually pretty easy. I'm going to give you an example before I move on with the questions. So let's say a product, it was $5, now it became $10. So I want to know percent increase. Well, it's a kind of common sense, but here you can use the formula. So the new value is $10 minus the old value is 5, and then you divide it by 5, right? Because that's the old value. Absolute value, because you don't want it to be negative, times it by 100. So 10 minus 5 is 5 over 5. That's 1 times 100. That's 100% increase. Okay, so that's how we find it. Now let's do this question here first, the 195. I'm going to go back to the one before it later. So let's see 125 became 135. So what is the percent increase? So what is the new value, guys? The increased one, 135. So 1.35 minus 1.25 divided by 1.25, absolute value times it by 100. Right? Now let's just solve it. So if you just subtract it, I think this is 0.10, 1.25 times it by 100. I can move the decimal 2 times to the right here also. So I get a 10 over 125 times it by 100, right? So that's 1000 over 125. I can simplify it by 25. 25 goes into 125 5 times. 25 goes into 1000 like 40 times, right? So, and this 40 divided by 5 is just 8. So it's 8%. Clear? So now let's take a look at this question here, 91. It says, they try to trick you on this question. So the sales tax rate increased from 7% to 7.5%. This is already in percentage. The other question we did, they were just numbers, like $1.25, $1.35. That's not percentages. So if you want to find the percent change between two numbers, then you use the formula. but they're already just the percentage, 7 to 7.5. I can just simply subtract 7.5 minus 7, which is a 0.5% increase, right? So on $200. So 0.5% means, I'm just gonna erase these things here. Oh, sorry. Okay. So 0.5%, be extremely careful about it, is 0.005, right? Because you move the decimal 2 times, then 2 zeros is going to be there. And times it by 200. Times it by 200, yeah. Because that's 200, yeah. And then it's that's 1.0. If you multiply, you see there are 3 numbers. Be careful, extremely careful with the multiplication. I believe it's $1. Alright, so that's it about percent. Oh, there's one more percent change. Well, this is just number to number, so we have to literally use the formula. So percent increase, so the new one is the bigger one. Remember, there can be percent decrease as well. And divided by 6.25, absolute value times it by 100. Well, when you just subtract, what do you guys get? 7 minus 2 is 5, I think 0.5, 6.25 times it by 100. So I can move, as I said, I can move the 2 decimals to the right. So that will be 50 over 625 times 100. Well, if I times 650 with the 100, that becomes just 5,000. I can simplify it by 25, goes into 625, right? 225 times. And 25 goes into 5,000 like 200 times. So I can divide by 25 again. I get 8. So answer is 8%. I believe it's 8. Okay. Yeah. So that's it. You can look at them. I gave you a brief. So this is just to help you during the exam that's coming. So alright, let's talk about fraction and ratio proportion. So it says a juice mixture contains 3 over 16 gallons of apple juice. So the apple juice is 316. But before I go for this question, I want to show you how fraction simplification works. That will make the life easier. So how fraction simplification works. Okay, so now you can see, let's say I give you a question. Let's say 4 out of 20 times it by 40 out of 16 times it by 32 out of 10 times it by 25 out of 50. So if you were to do it the traditional way, you'll probably multiply all these numbers and then divide by the product of all these numbers. That's a lot of work. So we can do simplification. What we can do is, you see this, the rule for simplification is you can simplify as long as one number is the numerator, another denominator. You can simplify with the numerator with the denominator. What I mean by that is, I can simplify the 4 and 16, right? I can also simplify the 16 with 32, right? But can I simplify with this 10 and 20? No, because they both are denominators. Alright, so can I simplify this 4 with the 40? No, because they both are numerators. So you see the situation, so one has to be denominator and another has to be numerator. So let's simplify the 16 and 32. Can I divide both of them by 16? Well, 16 divided by 16 will give me 1. Just cross it out, write a 1. And 32 divided by 16 will give you 2. Well, can I simplify this 20 with the 40? Yes. So I can divide both of them by 20. So I get a 1 here and a 2 there. Now, can I simplify this 10 and 50? No, they both are denominators. Remember, one has to be numerator, another denominator. Can I do 25 and 50? Yes, we can do it. 25 is a numerator and 50 is a denominator. So we can divide both by 25. We get a 1 and 2. Now take a look at it. Can I simplify with this 2 with that 2? Yes, numerator, denominator. I can divide both of them by 2. I get a 1, 1. Can I simplify these 2 with this 10? Yes. So I get a 1 and that's a 5. Can I simplify anything else? So all I have remaining at the end is this 4 and the 5 in the bottom. So everything else is just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So the final answer is just 4 over 5. That's it. So that's how fraction simplification works. Let's do one more fraction simplification. I'm going to give you a simpler one. Let's say 8 over 40 times it by 80 over 16. I could easily simplify 8 with the 16. I get a 1 and a 2. I could easily simplify 40 with the 80. I get 1 and 2. And then I can simplify at the end the 2 with the 2, 1, 1. So at the end, my answer is just 1. Right? So that's how the simplification works. We're going to use this technique for every question now. So in fraction most likely. So simplifying fraction is easy. Well, this only works with fraction multiplication. All right? Okay, now. So here, let's do the question. They said a juice mixture contains 3 over 16. So we're dealing with the fraction and ratio proportion together, right? So a juice contains 3/16 gallon of apple juice. So apple, we have 3 over 16. All right, that's the apple. And cranberry, we have 340, where cranberry is 340 gallons. Now it says how many gallons of apple juice. So apple, I don't know how many gallons of apple juice per gallon of cranberry. Per means 1, so 1 gallon of cranberry. So I can just set up a proportion easily, right guys? Just set up the proportion. Okay. So 3 over 16, that's the apple, over the cranberry, 3 over 40, and here x over 1. So x over 1 is just x, you know. So I just have to divide these two, you know, keep change flip. So 3 over 16 times 40 over 3. Now remember I showed you how to simplify. Now can I simplify this 3 with this 3, like divide both of them by 3? Yes, I get a 1 and a 1. Can I simplify 16 with 40? I could simplify by 2, or I could do by 8. So 16 divided by 8 is 2. 40 divided by 8 is 5. So it's just 5 over 2. So 5 over 2, and that's x, right? So 5 over 2 is just 2.5. That's it. Simple proportion. Alright, let's do another question. This one is a very interesting one. Alright. So Mr. Chan's lawn grows 2 and 1/8 inches every day. Okay. Every 2 weeks, sorry. So 2 and 1/8 in every 2 weeks it grows. He mows his lawn every 2 weeks and cuts off 1 3/4. So he cuts off, means he minus 1 3/4. So every 2 weeks. So at the end of 2 weeks, let's see how much it grows. So it grows by 2 and 1/8, but after the cutting, let's see how much it remains. We subtract. So 2 and 1/8 means like 8 times 2, 16. That's 17 over 8. Minus, that's 4 times 1, 4 plus 3, what? 7 over 4. We're going to make the denominator same. So times it by 2, 2. So what do we get? That's a 17 minus, that's a 14. So that's 17 minus 14 is a 3 over 8. So that happens every after 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks later. So after growing and cutting, this is what remains. 3/8 every 2 weeks. Now it says if Mr. Chan's lawn was 4 inches tall at the beginning of the season. At the beginning of the season, it was already what? 4 inches tall, right? So we can move it a bit. Alright, let's move it this way. Alright, it was already 4 inches tall, right? So they said how many inches tall it will become after 8 weeks. Well, we know that every 2 weeks later is 3/8. Then 4 weeks later is another 3/8. And then another 3/8, 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, another 3/8. So 4 times 4 of these, right? So I can just multiply 3/8 by 4. Right? So 3/8 times it by 4 over 1. So that's 12 over 8 That simplifies to what, guys? Divide by 4 both of them, so we get a 3 over 2. That's 1.5. So it was already 4 inches from the beginning, remember? And then 3 over 2 it increased after 8 weeks, and that's 1.5. So that's 5.5. Now the question is why I multiplied by 4 even though it was 8 weeks. Because remember, we're dealing with every 2 weeks. So there are like 4 periods of 2 weeks on 8 weeks. Remember that. So total 5.5. Another one, Misha uses he wants to use a ribbon to make 2 straps. Okay, 2 straps of a backpack. All right. So the ribbon costs $5 a yard, $5 for 1 yard. So if each strap requires 1 1/4 yard. Well, $5 for 1 yard. So for 1 1/4 yard will be 1 1/4 times 5. So that's 4 times 1 is like 5 over 4 times 5. Right? This isn't it? Yeah, 5 over 4 times 5. So that's 5 over 1. So 25 over 4. That's what? 6.25. That's for 1 strap. Remember that. Each strap takes 1 1/4 yard. But she's making 2 straps. So I'm going to times it by 2 to see, because this is the cost of 1. You times it by 2. So it's $12.50 for like the 2 straps. Simple word problems, guys. Read and that's it. You'll be fine. Now there are like these numbers and operation questions. You have to be careful about these. Now results from survey of 110 families. Number of children in the family. Alright, so the number of families, the number of children in the family. So 45 families has 0 children, 32 has 1 child, 19 have like 2 children each. So that's the table is talking about. Oh, sorry. Now, what is the question asking? Let's say, okay, find the median of 110 families. Well, 110 families, the median means you have to put them in order. So 110 families, so you divide 110 by 2. So middle will be like the 55th one. That's the middle of it. So 45 plus 32 is, the first 45 will be zeros, right? So it's not going to fall in the median. And when another 32 comes, they add up to like 77. So the 55 falls in somewhere here. So the median has to be 1. Okay, because if you list it like 45 zeros and then 32 ones and then 19 twos, and then you will see that the 55th one is falling in 1. So 1 is the median. Number 66, it says a list of consecutive. Consecutive means in order. Like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. Like, 2, 3, 4, or like 7, 8, 9. These are consecutive. Excuse me. Now, it says a list of consecutive integers begin with m. It's beginning with m, and then it's ending with n. So how many integers are there? If n minus m is 66. Forget about this n minus m for like a moment. So it says this is what it starts with m. This is the beginning, and ending with n. So how many integers are there? So let's think about it. Let's say if I ask from 5 to 8, how many integers are there? You can be like, okay, just 8 minus 5, 3. But that's not true. If you list it 5 to 8, 5, 6, 7, 8, there are actually 4 integers. So after subtracting, you have to add 1 with it to find how many integers are there. That's the rules. So let me explain the rule again. So if you want to find how many integers are there, you subtract, you do the last one minus the first one and then plus a 1. That's how you find how many integers are there. So now look at it. Here my last one is n, so minus m. So you have to do n minus m and then plus 1. And the good news is they already told you what n minus m is. That's 66. Just do plus 1 with it, 67. That's it. Question 69, it says if n is a whole number means all, remember 0 is a whole number, 0, 1, 2, 3, all positive numbers. Don't be shocked knowing 0 is a whole number. So if n is a whole number and 0.01 is between 1 over n and 1 over n plus 2, what is the value of n? So you can do trial and error, check out the each options. So first of all, 0 is not going to work if n is 0, so 1 over 0. 0 cannot be in the denominator, so it's not 0. So let's try if n is 1, so it will be 1 over 1, and this is 1 over n, 1 plus 2 is 3. So 1 over 1 is just 1, 1/3 is 0.33. So this is a very small number that's not in between 1 and 1/3. So if I use 2, what do I get? So we'll get 1 over 2 and 1 over 2 plus 2, 4. So that's between 0.5 and that's 0.25. So this number is very small, 0.001, so it's not even there. So it's D, because also it's a common sense, the denominator has to be big for this number to be small. Because this number is what? Like another simpler way is what? Like 0.01 is 1 over 100, right? So that's simple, closer to 99. These are word problems, logic you gotta use. Alright, now here one more. It says they gave you a bunch of numbers, and then it says at a skating championship there are 7 judges who each award a score for each skater's performance. The highest and the lowest scores given to each skater are discarded. Discarded means you remove them. So what is the highest? Like 9, remove it, and the lowest is 8.2, remove it. And after that, the mean means you add them, divide by the numbers. The mean of the remaining scores is calculated and reported to the skater's final score. So what is the final score? So we just have to find the mean of it. So you do 8.9 plus 8.5 plus 8.4 plus 8.6 plus 8.8. Whatever you get, you divide by 5, and that should give you the answer. I'm not doing it now, it's going to take a long time now. You just do it. So let's do the next one. Let x be an odd number. So let's say x is an odd number. So what is the sum of the 2 even numbers closest to it? Or I pick a number, let's say 5 is an odd number. The next closest even is 6, and the one 4 that's less than it. So these are the 2. So with the odd number, we had to plus 1 to get the next even, and minus 1 to get the closest even that's less than it. So x is odd, the next odd even will be x plus 1, and the even that was before it was x minus 1. And they said, what is the sum of the 2 even numbers? So sum of just these 2, this one, and this one. So if we just add, what do we get? So x minus 1 plus x plus 1. So that's here negative 1 and positive 1 is just cancel out. It's just 2x. Simple questions, guys. There's another one. It says in the figure above, n is the midpoint of MQ. So n is the middle point, so of the whole thing. So from here to here is x, we can see. So here to here will be x also, because that's the middle point. So here to here is x also. So now they said which segment is 2x minus y? Well, 2x is the whole thing. We know x and x is 2x. That's the whole thing. From 2x, if you subtract the y, 2x is the whole thing. Take out this part, which is from here to here is y. So all that remains is PQ. You guys see that? Let me show you again. 2x is the whole thing, and y is from here to here. So if you remove this part from 2x, all remains is PQ. That's why answer is PQ. This is just a simple absolute value question. So this is negative 8 minus 12. Then this is a plus and a minus will become minus 17. Minus and a minus become plus 31. And minus 24. So negative 8, negative 12 is negative 20. Negative 20, negative 17, negative 37. Plus 31 is negative 6. But the absolute value. And there's a minus, another absolute value 24. Remember, this minus has nothing to do with the absolute values, because remember, this is inside the absolute value, the negative 6 and 24, but not the minus. This minus is outside. So this negative 6 will become positive 6, minus 24 is just positive 24. You know, absolute value makes it positive. So it's negative 18. F. Well, the final topic is probability. This is very important. So first of all, before I go for probability, I'm going to give you some background knowledge. 3 types of probability you got to understand. The type 1 just says, let's say you have a box, there are 10 red marbles, 5 white marbles, and simply they ask what is the probability of picking a white. Let's say if I were to put my hand inside the box and take out a marble, what is the probability that we get 1 white? How many white, guys? 1. But the probability means chances, like the chances, right? The probability of picking only 1 white is what? 5 out of 15, because there are 5 white out of total 15, right? But remember, I just picked 1 white, not all 5. Then why I put 5 over 15? Because the chances is 5 over 15, but I only took out 1. Probability is 5 over 15, but I took out only 1. Remember this. Excuse me. So that's the first type. So they will give you red and white, and they're going to ask, okay, what is the probability of picking a white? So it's just 5 out of 15, probability of picking white. That's type 1. Now type 2, they will give you, let's say in a box, there are total 20 marbles, 20. And they will say red is 2/5. Red is what? 2/5. So how many red is there? So you just multiply this 2/5 with the total 20 over 1. That gives you answer. So remember I showed you how to simplify, of course. Simplify 5 with 20, right? Get a 1 and a 4. Can I simplify 2 and 4? No, because they are both numerators. So we just multiply these 2. 4 times 2, 8. So total 8 reds. 8 red. So that's another, the second type. The third type is pretty simple as well. Type 3 is like 2 events. Like more than 2 events, right? 2 events. 2 events or more. Like you'll be like, what do you mean by 2 events? Let me show you to very more briefly. So it says, let's say you have a box. You have 3 red marble. We'll make the box bigger. Let's say you have a big box. So 3 red marble, 4 black marbles, and let's say 5 yellow marbles. Now I say that if I were to pick 2 marbles, what is the probability that first I get a red and then I get a blue? There was blue or black? Okay, let's say there was black, yeah. Right? Now the probability of getting a red first is what? 3 out of, if you add them all, that's 7 plus 5, 12. That's the probability of getting red. So now there are 2 words you have to understand, like with replacement or without replacement. You'll be like, oh, what do you mean by with replacement? So now the case is, be like, okay, you took out 2 marbles, like red and black you want, the probability. So when you took out the red first, did you place it back again or you just threw it out? So let's say I ask you a question like, okay, what is the probability of picking a red and a black? When you pick the red, you didn't replace it back. So without replacement. So you took out a red, only 1 red you took out, but the probability was 3 out of 12. So now you have 1 less red. So now you have only 2 red. Now probability of picking a black now is 4 black out of total is 11. You see the total became 1 less because you took out a red already. So now you have 1 less total. Now you just multiply them. So if you multiply them, you get 3 times 4, 12, and 12 times 11. You could do simplifying when you multiply, simplifying will make it easier. Right? You can simplify 4 with 12, we get a 3, 1. Right? We can simplify these 3 with that 3, numerator, denominator. So it's just 1 over 11. You get it? 2 events. So we're going to practice some questions so you'll understand the 3 types. Alright? So let's take a look at the types again. Type 1 is just simple picking probability, right? Alright, let's practice them, you'll get better. Alright, let's make it simple, easier. Alright, these are the 3 types. So type 1, simply finding probability, that probably you understood. Type 2 is just, the fraction you multiply to see how many red. Type 3 is just the 2 events. Right? What is the probability of picking red and black? And you just multiply. We're going to practice them more. Like this question, let's say here first. The type 3 ones, let's say we're going to do that first. Okay, let's go in order. So let's do 111. The probability of an event occurring is 0.05. What is the chances that the event will occur? 0.05 is like 5%, which is very unlikely. Very small. Not impossible, unlikely. Then the second here it says the probability of drawing a red candy at a random bag is 25. Oh, bag of 25, sorry. So the probability of, there is a bag. So the probability of drawing a red candy at random from a bag of 25 candies. So we have a bag with 25 candies. Probability of drawing red is 2/5. Remember the type 2 I showed? Here. So you just multiply the fraction with the number to get how many. So how many red we have, guys? 2/5 times it by 25. Remember, can we simplify the 5 with 25? See, simplification helps. So 1 and 5. So 2 times 5 is just what? 10. So we have 10 red. Now after 5 red candies are removed. Okay, so remove 5 red. So I have only 5 red. Remember, when you remove 5 red, the total is not 25 anymore. The total is now 20 because you removed the 5 red. So now what is the probability of drawing a red candy? So now I have 5 red, but total is 20. So it's 5 out of 20. I can simplify it by 5. We get 1/4. It says 2 number of cubes have sided labeled 1. So 2 cubes, right? They are each labeled with 1 through 6, like like a die. Now both number cubes are rolled. How many different outcomes will have a sum 6? So you want to have an outcome 6. In this kind of outcome situation, you can just list them. Maybe from the first cube you can get a 1 when you roll it, and the second cube you can get a 5. So 1 plus 5, the sum will be 6. That's one way, right? Or you could get like a 2 and a 4, still that's a 6. You could get 3 and a 3, that's 6. You get 4 first and then 2, that's a 6. You could get 5 first and then 1, that's also 6. So that's it. These are the 5 different ways you can get it. So answer is 5. Now here it says a bowl of candies. A bowl contains 12 green candies, 4 yellow, and some red, but we don't know how many. Now the probability of choosing a green candy at random is twice the probability of choosing a red. So the probability of choosing green is 2 times the red. Well, green is 12, so red is what? 6. Because 6 times 2 is 12. Because green is 2 times greater than red. So red must have been 6. Now what is the probability of choosing a yellow? So yellow is 4, so it's 4 out of what? Total, which is 12 plus 4 is 16 plus 6, 22. We can simplify by 2, we get a 2 out of 11. So that's 2/11. Alright, now 86 here. It says jar Q, so there is a ball Q, has 12 ball in it, total 12, and jar R contains 8 ball. The probability of drawing a yellow ball at random from jar Q is 1/3. So yellow is 1/3. Remember, so 1/3 times 12, so that's 12/3, that's 4, right? So I have 4 yellow. And now the probability of drawing a yellow at jar R is 3/4. So R has 8, so 3/4 times 8/1. That's 24 divided by 4 is 6. So yellow is 6 here. Because getting it what I did, I just multiply the fraction with the number. That's it. Now all the balls are poured into an empty jar S. So now I got another jar S. We put all the ball there. So 12 and 8, so total 20. and yellow is 4 plus 6, 10. Now the question asking what is the probability of drawing yellow from the jar S. It says 10 out of 20. So that's 1/2. This is 3 different colors of paint are available to paint the window frame, the door. So we have a window frame, the door, and the wall house. So you need window frame, door, and the wall house. So if no 2 parts of the house may be painted the same color, so there are 3 different colors. So for window frame we have 3 options, right? You can pick anything out of the 3 colors. For the door you have 1 less option. Remember, whatever paint you used for the window frame you cannot use it for the door. And for the wall you have only 1 option, because whatever you used for window frame and door you cannot use it. So you just multiply the options, then you get 6. That's it. Clear? 107 says Chris has 1 red shirt 1, white 2, and black 3. Now the Chris picks a shirt at random without putting the first shirt back. Remember, the without replacement is he picked a shirt at random and he didn't put it back. So, and second, he picked another shirt, right? What is the probability that the first shirt he picked was black and then the second shirt he picked was red? So the probability of him picking black shirt first is just simply 3 out of the total, which is 3 plus 2, 5 plus 1, 6. But the probability of picking the red is 1 out of 5, because 1 less, because you already picked a black and you didn't put it back. So now you have total 1 less. So 6 over 3 means just 1/2 times it by 1/5. So that's 1/10. That's it. That's the third type. So I gave you guys the brief explanation. So if it were to be too fast, it's because I'm assuming that you guys know some basics. For more practice, you can join my online SHSAT course called Level Sigma. I have video lessons there, related worksheets, and practice questions, math and English both. You can take them as a quiz. You can check your scores after. And once you submit the worksheet, you can check the score and the explanations. I also have video explanations for the worksheets. Thank you very much.